Hey guys, and welcome to yet another episode of What If TPOT was voted to eliminate. If you remember, these were the teams as of the beginning of TPOT 12. And for the changes, since every team except Cloudier has the same members, I highly doubt anything changes. Let's begin with the other teams. Since Pillow isn't here to throw Ice Cube onto the moon, I don't think um Death Pact, like, they don't find the moon, and so they have to throw something else. Anyway, Death Pact would definitely still win. And for Cloudier, I have a different thing. So, um, if yeah, they probably steal Cloudy stuff without telling him, and that makes him really upset. And so Lightning and him have a conversation about like something, and while Cloudy doesn't really forgive them, he's not that upset anymore, and Lightning and Cloudy become friends. So yeah, let's begin with the elimination. Bagged is probably the team that performed the worst, as Team 2, while they're up for elimination, they probably at least found something, and yeah, Snowball threw himself onto the pit. So, yeah, Bagged is up for elimination first, and Team 2 lost again, and Team 2 lost as well. For Bagged, Pen and then Needle are obviously safe, as their friendship has just been established, and they don't really have any haters. Basketball is also pretty well liked, so she's safe. Now we're down to the bottom three. This may seem a bit random, but let me explain. Tennis Ball is here because of his awful leadership skills. That would bring him a bit more hate. TV is here because after the team swap, his haters became much more relevant, and the number of them grew exponentially. And Bottle, she never really does well, neither in vote to save or vote to eliminate, so she's obviously here. Anyway, considering how Tennis Ball got the most votes in the original episode, he's definitely safe, and probably not with that many more votes in Basketball. Yeah, he's safe. Now it's down to TV and Bottle. Even if, yeah, I highly doubt it's not, I highly doubt that it's close. Bottle is certainly safe. TV had a lot of haters, and he's out. Sorry, TV fans. I'm one of you, but yeah, he's out. For Team 2, Grassy and then Taggy are obviously safe. They're two really well liked characters, and with little to no haters. Book is also safe, obviously. This leaves it down to the bottom three. Eraser is here mainly for people considering him as boring. Snowball is here for his brash attitude, even though he's popular. And Ice Cube is here because, like, after BFB, Ice Cube became pretty hated because of the not. Well, because she's Ice Cube. Anyway, Snowball is definitely safe. While in my original script, I had planned on Ice Cube being eliminated, considering how practically everyone thought she was gonna be out, and she stayed. I think that due to the fact that she wasn't really that hated and people would probably vote for someone else, she'd actually be safe. It would be incredibly close, though. And yeah, for the rejoin, everything stays the same. Lai and Pencil join. Lai chooses to go to Bagged, and Pencil decides to join Cloudy. Well, this episode would be a bit harder to administer, like, to actually explain what goes on here, but I think that in Cloudy, they'd still, like, not let Golf Ball lead and instead choose Coiny or, like, Winner, and they end up losing because of, like, some pretty bad leadership. However, Golf Ball still goes into her solitude, into, instead of just doing her thing with Donut, she actually ends up being alone, and that actually causes her to reflect and stuff. So yeah. Also, since Pill isn't here to like defeat the dragon and stuff, Coiny or Winner probably cause it to like just like jam onto the window and wake up too. So they're the first ones up for elimination. And on Death Pact, yet again, even if the fight doesn't happen because Remote is here instead of Robot Flower. And if you remember last time, Remote was the one who, like, was. Yeah, they are now friends. They're all friends, but I think that similar to with like Cloudier, just some bad administration, the Bugs still find their way up into two's room, and they're still up for elimination. This elimination was crazy difficult to decipher since, well, all of these characters, except for Golf Ball, Pencil, and Winner, had originally been eliminated, but I'll try my best. Cloudy and Lightning are definitely the first ones safe. Then, with a certain increase in votes, Queenie would also be safe. Most of his votes would come from people wanting him out since he was already in BFDIA and yada yada, all that stuff. Anyway, he's safe. Golf Ball would probably be the next save. Nevertheless, she would still have a good chunk of votes, considering how it's vote to eliminate. But since she did have the reflection and she did get what she deserved for being bossy, I think that she'd be safe. Now it's down to Pencil, Winner, and Bommy. Pencil is probably here because the viewers, some of them would not have liked her to rejoin, especially Bracelety fans. Winner didn't really do much, and Bommy just sits around. Anyway, Winner is obviously safe. And while this bottom two would have definitely been close, Pencil is certainly safe. Considering that Bommy was already in BFDIA, Pencil had just rejoined and he'd probably not do anything. Bommy is doomed, even if it's pretty close. Anyway, for Death Pact elimination, Katie is obviously the first one safe. She had like little to no haters. Remote and Black Hole are the next one safe since their conflict had already been resolved. And Pin would be seen as a pretty fun character, so people would want her in. Whip 2, bottom 3. Tree is here. Well, yeah, Tree and Marker are both here for being boring. And Fanny, if you remember correctly, instead of it being her, Remote would be the one to be against the death preventing thing. So here she would be just a mean character that doesn't really do anything. Anyway, Marker is safe because he's pretty liked. And I'm not even gonna actor prize. This would be a landslide vote against Fanny. Considering how she wouldn't have been doing anything except saying I hate stuff, she would have definitely been out. Bye-bye. For this episode, I highly doubt anything changes, except for the fact that Cloudier, since they have 2 flying members, would win immediately, and then, well, Team 2 would be the next one safe. So, yeah. Death Pact yet again, and Backed are up for elimination. Let's begin with Backed, since on the original episode, they were the first ones up, like, that lost, so yeah. Pen and then Needle would obviously be the first one safe with their new foreign friendship, and so would be Tennis Ball since he isn't really hated. Don, bottom 3. Elias here, not because she's hated, it's more of just because the other ones are much more liked. Same thing goes for Basketball, and Bottle is here because, as I've mentioned before, she isn't really popular. Well, kind of, but you get what I mean. Anyway, Lai is obviously safe. This voting would be kind of close since both of them are pretty liked, but inevitably, Bottle is eliminated. Basketball has a good chunk of fans, so she's obviously safe. For Death Pact yet again, Gady and Remote are safe first, obviously. Followed probably by Tree, because a good chunk of his haters wouldn't vote for him, because he actually did something this episode. And bottom 3 time. Black Hole is here just because he'd probably tend to receive a bit more votes than the other members for being a black hole. Pin is here because people would start to find her a bit rude. And Marker because he just has haters. Anyway, Black Hole is obviously safe. And even with how close this would be, Marker is definitely out. There's no universe, haha, Teapot 15, where I think that, yeah, Marker's out. So, Teapot 15, this episode was really crazy, and because of that, I still believe that, like, all the contestants, except, like, for, like, Pencil, would try to mostly focus on getting the tunneling back together, and I think that things would mostly stay the same, and, well, yeah, pretty much. Death Pact and Team 2 are still up for elimination. Oh, and a very important thing, since Skady is still competing, one can't erase her, and will just send her back, and will threaten her not to tell anyone about this, so yeah. Starting with Death Pact, everyone here is pretty well liked, so the votes would be incredibly close. Anyway, Remote, Black Hole, and Gady are all the first ones safe for obvious reasons. Bottom two, Pin and Tree. Both of them are here for pretty strange reasons, and mostly because of happenstance. Pin is here mostly because she's already competing in BFDIA, which would garner her a few more voters. And Tree is mostly here because he's seen as boring. However, even if this would be incredibly close, I think that Pin would eventually be eliminated. Seeing as how the votes turned out from, like, Teapot up until Teapot 17, I think that people would want to still keep the original Death Pact together, so they'd get Pin eliminated. For Team 2 now, these would be even more complicated and even closer than Death Pact yet again, because, again, everyone here is pretty well liked. Anyway, Book and then Taggy are definitely the first one safe, as they don't really have any haters. Even if after, like, Teapot 14, his hatred went a bit up, and his total amount of fans started to go down, he's definitely the next one safe. So yeah, Grassy is safe. Dun dun. Bottom two times Snowball and Ice Cube. Snowball is here mainly because, he's seen as rude and would probably just be a vote magnet this season. And Ice Cube is here because she's seen as boring and the least liked person left on the team. Yeah, this would be very close, but yeah, Ice Cube is definitely eliminated. Even with the one thing, there's no way that she would still be here, since all of the other characters have a huge fan base. So for Teapot 16, I think that practically the same stuff plays out. And yeah, Cloudy will still lose 2 members. So yeah, before the elimination, I want to explain a bit of stuff. So Pencil would probably just take advantage of the fact that Cloudy and Lightning are flying, and would just think that they don't need to hide, and for some strange reason or something for an X find them. And she uses Queenie as fodder, and tries to use Winner's fodder as well. And yeah, the same thing happens. Anyway, Cloudy and Lightning are obviously the first one safe. After a noticeable increase in votes, Queenie is also safe. This leaves it down to the bottom 3. Golf Ball is here because she's seen as bossy. Pencil is probably the most hated character right now. And Winner because they're a non-object. Anyway, Winner is obviously safe. While Pencil will receive a lot more votes than Golf Ball because of just the fact that she's hated, Golf Ball is seen as bossy, and in Vote to Eliminate, she's doomed. So yeah, as much as I love the both of them, there's no way that they're surviving. This episode would probably be the one that's the hardest to write, because number one, Bottle is eliminated, and therefore for our next would be hosting. I won't change the challenge to not, make things too difficult. And while it may be a bit of a cheap reason, since Needle in this universe hadn't been sent to the one universe yet, and she hadn't even met one, I think that for the sake of consistency and for there to be four members of a team and she got sent to the one universe, and for next simply disqualify her because they don't think it's one. For the eating challenge, Black Hole, Lion, Taggy, and Winner are still here, so they still compete in it. Trey and Grassy go to the haunted house. Pen and Snowball go to the Ferris wheel. And Tennis Ball and Book go to the Force. Now for the people left. Basketball has to go to the haunted house. Remote fits best to go to the Force, so Katie goes to the Ferris wheel. Coiny would probably go to the Ferris wheel, and it's much easier to disable Cloudy's flying than Lightning, so he goes to the Force, gets tape all over his body, and Lightning goes to the haunted house. The points for the eating challenge stay the same, and for the Force, Cloudy just falls off because he doesn't have limbs. Tennis Ball would fall off next, and from compared to Remote and Book, but Remote probably lasts longer on there. For the haunted house, I think that Tree and Lightning would have some interactions as former pack members, and they'd easily find a way to get out. Basketball and then Grassy would be killed. And for the Ferris wheel, yeah, I think that while Coiny might scare Snowball and Katie, Pen definitely knocks him down easily. So now let's tally up the scores. Bagged and Cloudy lose. I think that, since Bagged also lost in the original episode, we'll do them. Also, Needle comes back. The first one safe would probably be Pen, as he doesn't really have any haters. Now, with a slight but noticeable increase in votes, Tennis Ball is also safe because even though he might get votes for being in BFDIA and for being chased by the Force, I highly doubt it if it affects his vote count. Needle is also safe because she doesn't really have any haters. Bottom 2 time, Lion Basketball. Basketball is here because she's seen as boring, and Lie is here because of accusing Black Hole of sabotaging her, being kind of rude to everybody, being a rejoiner because that doesn't really help, and yeah, even if it's close, Lie's definitely out. Even if Lie had come back 6 episodes ago, since Pencil already got out, I highly doubt that the voters would feel sympathetic towards Sly. For Cloudy, it's even harder, but I think because of his interactions with Tree and stuff, Lightning would be the first one safe. And even if he did nothing this episode, I think that Cloudy doesn't really have any haters, so he's also safe. Now it's down to the bottom 2, Coiny and Winner. Winner is here because, well, they're a non-object, and they haven't really had much stuff to do for now. And Coiny is here because of already being in BFDIA and probably not having anything to do. And even if it's a bit close, Winner is miles more popular than Coiny. So, sorry Coiny, you're out. For TPOT 19, it would be even weirder to write because practically all the characters that are left wouldn't really have a drive to murder people. But if I had to guess, first Death Pact and then Bagged would be up for elimination. So, for Death Pact, yeah, Remote is obviously the first one safe. Followed by Black Hole. It leaves it down to Tree and Gady. Both of them aren't really disliked. They're just here because they're far less popular than Black Hole or Remote. And even if it's a bit close, yeah, no, Gady is definitely surviving. Well, Tree did last a good while, so... For Bagged, Pen and then Needle are obviously safe. Now it's down to the bottom 2. Tennis Ball and Basketball. 2 balls. And Tennis Ball is here because of the forward chasing thing, being a villain in BFDIA, all that stuff. And Basketball is here because she'd be really boring. Anyway, Tennis Ball is obviously safe. he is just much more popular, and people would want to keep golf balls like friend to avenge her. So yeah, sorry basketball. Well, this is it for now. See you later. See you in the next episode for when the Teapot 20 to 30 part comes out. Yeah, so bye.